Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, it's an all-Pundit show coming to you from the Las Vegas Metro Chamber. On the broadcast, Paul Moradkhan, Amber Stidham, and Alexander Marks. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're coming to you from the Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce here, and we're joined by three great pundits. Paul Moradkhan is the Vice President of Government Affairs here at the Metro Chamber. Amber Stidham is joining us for the first time. Pleasure to have you on the program. She's Director of Government Affairs for the Henderson Chamber of Commerce. And Alexander Marks is the Nevada State Education Association Political Coordinator. Pleasure to have you all here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for
having us.
So
the session is over. We've had a little time to breathe. So, Paul, let's start with you and the good, the bad, the ugly.
Sure. I mean, first of all, the session is over, so I think all of us are glad to be back in Southern Nevada. I think Southern Nevada actually did really well for the session. We saw new funding for the UNLV Engineering School. We saw dollars for the Nevada State College Education Building. We saw funding for the CSN Health Science Building. So I think Southern Nevada itself did really well. I think those buildings are important, and I know we've talked about, Amber, of course, with the Henderson Chamber, that those buildings really help us with workforce development on teachers and on educators, which I know is obviously important to the NSEA too. So I think for Southern Nevada, we did very well for the infrastructure projects we really need for the South.
All right, so what were the bad and the ugly?
Well, I think, for the business community, I think we were able to mitigate a lot of concerns that we had through quite a few bills that we had concerns about, from mandatory paid time off to employment discrimination, misclassification of employees. We were able to work those bills with the legislators and the leadership to get to those bills where it's a balance between addressing the concerns of the business community, but also addressing those concerns of groups that brought those bills forward.
Okay, so when you say misclassification, are you talking about people who would be contract versus employees?
Exactly. It was SB 493, and we were fortunate to have a bill sponsor who was willing to work with the business community and address many of those concerns that our two chambers had.
Yeah.
And I think it ended up being in a good spot where you had the policy intent, but also you had something that was practical that the business community could work with and move forward with.
Okay, Amber, then it leaves to you to tell us about what was ugly.
I'm sorry?
What was ugly at the session?
What was ugly?
For,
Thanks,
for
Paul.
The, for the chamber.
Paul took all the highlights. I would like to start off, though, highlighting, and we will get to the ugly. I would certainly echo his comments on there were some good aspects in terms of workforce development that our Chamber of Commerce and his as well supported in terms of funding for some major capital improvement projects that will help develop the workforce that we need. The bad part, again, to Paul's point, we saw a lot of employment law pieces, back-end regulatory measures that would have been initially as introduced really harmful to our businesses. But again, I think we mitigated a lot of that. The mandatory paid sick leave, which ended up being a paid time off. I think there's a lot of concessions and negotiations where we're in a good place now for a lot of our business members. And then, of course, the big white elephant in the room is minimum wage. And even though certainly I think the business community fundamentally does not like to see mandates in place, I think, again, we got to a good place compared to what we thought might have happened earlier on in the session.
And I think another big win for the business community as a whole was the fact we're able to define the small business as 50 employees. It's not 10, it's not 5.
That's a good point.
It's 50, which our two chambers are mostly made up of small members, and that was important for them to have those caveats in some of those bills because smaller businesses don't have the resources to implement some of those bills. So I think for having that small business exemption was important, not just for our members, but for the state. I know that was something the governor was very concerned about, not impacting small businesses with some of these policy bills. So we consider that to be a win, I would think.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so before we get to the good and bad and ugly from your perspective, let's talk about the minimum wage. It really seems to me that minimum wage at this point in time is just a discussion, because anybody, even with the new minimum wage of $12, anybody's trying to get somebody to work for them at $12, good luck on finding them, right?
Right, I agree. I mean, we certainly supported the bill in session. It doesn't necessarily have a direct impact on our members, but if the minimum wage is higher, that certainly helps with our lower earning members in terms of organizing and coming up with a negotiation with their collective bargaining agreements. But I agree, you know, it's a competition thing. I'm still a firm believer it should be 15, but that's a different conversation for another Nevada Newsmakers, I think.
I don't know, though, because
we didn't get to 15 this session, and I think that would have been something we would have supported as well.
Right, but I mean, I think the reality is that if you're offering $15 an hour, you're lucky to get somebody coming to work for you at this
Sure,
point,
and I think if you look at the DETR numbers and you look at the state medium and mode salaries right now in the state for average worker, it's way above 15. So the market is driving that, and philosophically, you know, the chamber believes it's a market-driven issue. When we surveyed our members, their concerns about the minimum wages, well, how many are going to have to go to automation? Will they replace employees? Will they have to cut hours? Will they have to change the way their business model works? And that's where our concern was. We don't want that negative impact or adverse outcome occur on the employment sector of the state. So that's why we'd oppose the bill. I know.
And I think with our members, and sort of similar to Paul's members as well, we look, I mean, businesses, especially our small businesses, they need continuity, they need reliability, they need to know how things are being phased in over a period of time so they know how to build their business. A lot of what happens with minimum wage, and that was part of our discussion too, is albeit even though it's stair-stepped in, there's other impacts in terms of payroll and labor costs that impacts the output of business employers with the payroll taxes, workers' compensation, whatnot. That was part of the conversation too. That's just part of what you have to discuss.
And I think that's Amber's point is excellent. Is I think, you know, regardless if it's 75 cents or a dollar, every single time you do an increase, there are those compounding effects of the minimum wage, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, and those are just the state taxes, and you have the federal ones, of course. So it is not. It's more than just 75 cents or dollar to an employer per hour.
Right. All right. So Alexander, let's talk about, you know, from your perspective, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So education's always everybody's number one issue when they knock doors. I think this session we saw a lot of that. The good, student data is no longer being included at 40% of a teacher's evaluation. We were able to knock down that number to 15%, which is a solid win for us. We passed a bill about our education support professionals getting some additional training, which also helps keep pesticides out of our classrooms and schools, so that was a good win. The funding stuff I know is complicated. There were quite a few bills of that nature. SB 551 was good in the sense that school safety is being funded. We get the teacher or the educator raises rather, so the 3% increase that Governor Sisolak was promising. So that was good. And then within that, there was the school safety, and then unfortunately we had to eat the cost of the opportunity scholarships again, but we're happy to see that that program's kind of being phased out a little bit based on how much they allocated. The budget did increase the base funding by about 4.2%. That's about as good as we're going to get without raising new revenue. And I think they did everything they could to find that money. So those were good things. You know, we always talk about increasing the base. They did that. The ugly, in our opinion, was the funding bill, 543. They shut out stakeholders. They were secretive. This was a clandestine process that two senators and pretty much Jeremy Aguero from Applied Analysis wrote without any stakeholders being involved. The process was flawed, so the bill was flawed. They didn't offer or accept any amendments that myself, my organization, and other organizations offered to help make this bill better, whether it was the rural freeze and squeeze or the multi-million-dollar giveaway to charter schools or just any number, even having an educator sit on the commission for funding. All of those were ignored. And I think, you know, when it comes down to it, you have to have a good process if you want a really good bill. And, you know, if we're going back to like the minimum wage, they certainly sat with all stakeholders on that. They got to an agreement, and I think that's the way the bills should be processed, but this is not how that funding bill was. So that's unfortunate, because I think what's going to happen with that is we're going to spend the next 2 years trying to figure out how to fix this bill. as opposed to helping implement the bill.
Were you disappointed that the funding for the 3% was being bumped down to the county level?
I think we expected it, just given how the collective bargaining works, that it was going to be kicked down to the district. I think 309, which was another funding bill from Speaker Frierson, that's got some good items in there. I think that's really the only way to do it. I mean, it's been said that this bill was a dedicated funding source for teachers. Unfortunately, it's not. But what it does do is it creates the mechanism to get that 3% down to the districts so that they can open up contracts if they're currently closed, or just continue negotiating that 3%. So we expected it, and I'm hopeful the districts are going to grant the 3% because that's what it was there for, and that's what it was allocated.
Have there been discussions so far between NSEA and county commissioners?
We haven't had any about the sales tax increase of any sorts. I've only kind of read what Clark County's doing. At this point, I don't know what they're going to do, but
I can tell you Tick Segablum is in favor.
I know he's been very vocal about
but he's
that.
the only one right now.
But he's the only one that I've heard so far, and I think I don't know, because it's got the list of items that you can allocate. I don't know if there's an agreement that it'll be 50 for education and then 50 for all the other items like the affordable housing and homelessness and all that. I don't know what that allocation is, so that's something I think we need to keep an eye on to make sure that it does get to education. But those are also worthy causes that money should be going towards as well.
All right, Amber, what was your response to the idea that the legislature basically punted this down to the counties?
I don't have too much. No, our organization has really focused more on, when it comes with respect to education, more on workforce development. I think our reach has kind of been, we've honed it in just knowing knowing the massive amount of bills that come through every session, the discussions that need to be had, to more of higher education. And with that respect, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd be pontificating without really knowing too much about it. Yeah.
I don't know is a great answer if one doesn't know.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you think that Clark County is ready to increase their sales tax yet again?
I think just knowing the commissioners, I think they're going to take a serious look at it. I think to Alexander's point, there is a litany, I think, about 8 different funding sources that they're able to fund. So I think the question will be to your point, is 50% for education? Is it 30%? Do we fund those other ones? We know from legislators in this session, K-12 is always important, but there's also this concern statewide about affordable housing. There was a couple bills addressed on the affordable housing, SB 448, for example, on tax abatements for low-income housing. So I think the county commission will probably need to have that conversation first, is where do we want those dollars to go before they take a vote, would be my assumption. But there is no expiration on when they need to take a vote on, so it could occur next month, it could occur 6 months from now. They have that time as their friend and when they want to take action on that bill.
What did you think about the removal of the deans in the Clark County School District?
So we've worked with our local affiliate, the National Education Association of Southern Nevada. That's NEASN or NESN, whatever you want to call it. Their position is more focused on the school safety of it all. We did some great things at the legislature with regard to school safety. We had the omnibus bill, restorative justice. We had the pupil suicide. So there's a litany of items that we worked on very hard to get passed into law, and all of them did get passed. What does that look like when you remove those deans from that process? That's kind of our concern at NSEA. So we'll support our locals' opinion, which is the dean should have stayed. We don't know what school safety is going to look like, and that's where our main focus is how safe are our classrooms, how safe are our teachers, how safe are the environments that our children and teachers are working in. When you take the deans out, that could be very problematic given all the school safety items that we worked hard to pass this session.
Now, people know that there's usually about 600 job openings in the Clark County School District each year that go unfilled. Are the deans going to be put into those positions, and would there be comparable pay for those folks? So
that's my understanding, is that they are going to transition most of the deans into the classrooms again. I don't know if there could be licensure issues with some of them. I don't know. Those are kind of some of the unknowns. The hope is that those will be filled by the deans. I don't know if they're going to reclassify them, rename them, but there certainly, I'm guessing, will be a pay decrease of sorts to make up for the budget shortfall that was the reason they were let go to begin with.
All right, let's take a break. More with our pundits when we come back.
Tamarack Junction is South Reno's hotspot with over 450 of the latest slots and video games. Sully Sports Bar, the Dining Car Restaurant, William Hill Sportsbook, and the Tamarack Steakhouse and Lounge. We're just north of the Summit Mall in South Virginia.
Yeah. Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
Hi, I'm Eric Robnett, owner of Home Energy Experts. Has this ever happened to you?
Honey, did you remember to turn down the thermostat?
Forgetting to set the temperature? Not fun. We can help. Our new smart thermostat keeps the temperature set for your comfort all by itself.
I'm feeling hot now.
To increase your comfort, go to homeenergyexperts.com for details. That's homeenergyexperts.com.
The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
The Tamarack Junction Steakhouse is known for signature steaks, handcrafted cocktails, and world-class wines. Join us Thursdays and Friday nights from 4:30 to 6:30 in the Steakhouse Lounge for live music, gourmet plates, and well-priced wines, just north of the Summit Mall on South Virginia.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we've got an all-pundit show here, talking about what happened to the legislature with Paul Moradkhan, Stidham, and Alexander Marks. So obviously there was a lot of disruption. This was a crazy session, from the majority leader stepping down at the very beginning of the session, Mike Sprinkle leaving, Tyrone Thompson's passing. I mean, as people working at the legislature, you had to deal with both the circumstances, but also we still had a 120-day session. It didn't get extended.
Sure, and I think that's a great perspective. I think for the chamber, you also had a lot of folks who were appointed who did not run the general election. So I think a lot of the trade groups and interest groups had to quickly scramble and get to meet these folks, explain who we represent, what do we do, and what our policies are. I think that was a unique factor for me personally, from the chamber perspective, that you had all these new appointments, you had the disruptions, you had the resignation. Senator Kennedy did a great job stepping into that role, but I mean, there was a lot of new nuance, and you also had a new governor and new administration. So there were a lot of new players that you had not really encountered before. So I think that really changed a lot of dynamics in this session.
It's interesting because, I mean, you look at a November, election, and then you have a few months to transition into the legislative cycle, after which all of this additional transition occurs during a 120-day period. It's a lot to take in, and re-educate some of your new legislators about your organization, what's important to you, but and certainly their roles and in a variety of different committees that we're involved with. It was definitely unique to anything that I've experienced before.
Well, and a change in majority leader.
Yeah,
I mean, that's never happened before.
We were sitting at the State Board of Education, and I just happened to hop on Twitter, and we saw that he had resigned, and just everything that came with it. So it was it was early enough in the session where we could kind of adapt, but I mean, just as Paul said, I mean, it was just so much adaptation that had to occur. And I mean, from the education realm, having the chair of Assembly Education, Tyrone Thompson, unfortunately passed away mid-session, was just kind of, it rocked us for one reason, because we all liked Tyrone and it was a tragedy. And then you kind of feel like you can't grieve quick enough because the law says 120 days. And, so it's from grieving to who's the chair, who do we need to talk to. He was on a lot of bills like Read by 3, he and I and a group of stakeholders worked on to basically change the Read by 3. He was sponsoring the restorative justice bill. He was on the mentoring bill. I mean, his passion was intoxicating, and then to have that kind of ripped away real quick was kind of a blow to all of us. But we had to adapt because we have to be done in 120 days, and you feel callous saying stuff like that. So it was just kind of the emotions involved in that, and then the political practicability, I guess, of doing so. But and then a new majority leader early on, now it's changing that perspective. How does that change every single dynamic we were working on? From our perspective of the collective bargaining bills, which the former majority leader was sponsoring several of those got moved, and it's trying to figure out navigating who's going to pick them up, when are they getting hearings, and yeah, so it was a lot of moving parts in addition to the millions of other moving parts you deal with just normally.
Well, and it was interesting too, from my perspective, was to observe, with the Democrats in power, but you had two completely different factions of the Democratic Party, people who were very progressive, who were trying to push the agenda in one direction, the more moderate Democrats, and you even saw it, I know that this wasn't a bill necessarily that you worked on, but the criminal justice reform, where you had, Steve Yeager pushing in one direction, and Nicole Cannizzaro going, well, hold on a second.
Sure, I think that's I think that's a great point. I think for the chamber of the session, realizing that there had been a lot of changes in the players and so forth, that we reached out to other interest groups to understand where they were coming from the policy perspective. As we're offering amendments, we had a better understanding of maybe what some of the proponents were offering, and we were able to most times come to a compromise at least. So I think that was a little different for our organizations, that we were reaching out more to folks, try to really understand what they were representing, who their clients were, what their policy goals were, because we've always, we know who the NSEA is, of course, we work with them, so sometimes we're on opposite sides, sometimes we're on the same side, but they're an established voice in the building, but there were a lot of new players, even on the lobbying side. We had to get to know them and understand what their policy perspectives were.
I think I saw a number that there's about 1,200 filed lobbyists for, how many legislators? And
so each one gets 20?
Everyone gets 20, yeah.
Right,
it's a lot. It's a lot to listen to when you're a legislator, hearing all sides of the story, and you're trying, at the end of the day, everyone's trying to make smart policy. Hopefully it's something that your organization can agree with too. And
we would love, at the end of the day, smart policy.
We would all love that.
Transparent, smart policy.
But I think
hang on, let me take one more break and then we'll be right back.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Come visit Design Outdoor's store and backyard to see our wide selection of fire pits, barbecues, and pizza ovens, natural stone water features and fountains, and frost-proof pottery. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
Can't do it. Stupid, like my mom.
We can't do anything at Mommy's because you won't pay child support.
Dad said you cheated, and he's not even sure he's my dad.
Mommy said you left both of us, so she isn't gonna let me see you.
I look just like my father.
I'm divorce attorney Marilyn York, and I may represent men, but hate has no gender, only casualties. Please, stop sacrificing your children in your war against your ex.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we've got an all-pundit show going here with Alexander Marks, Amber Stidham, and Paul Moradkhan. Amber, I wanted to ask you, one of the biggest things about the session that went nationwide was the first majority female legislature. How did this really play out in real time beyond just saying, okay, that's another chalk mark on the wall?
Right. I think we could see it in a variety of ways play itself out. Certainly a number of these women legislators, they have some great experience, and they bring a different perspective to the conversation. I think for the most part, our organization sees a lot of their policy focus areas usually focus on some sort of social issue. But in terms of how that impacts business, I think what we saw as chambers were a lot of maybe sort of a Me Too movement era, and anything that kind of addresses discrimination that works itself into employment law aspects of what we do. That's, I think, a trend that we'll continue to see for many years to come, provided that everything continues the way that it is, and all things considered, it looks like voter trends are still continuing to move that way, and that just means that we have to adapt to the conversation, using your word, adapting, moving forward. But yeah, that's what social issues primarily for.
Okay, Alexander, I mean, you and Paul both had to deal with the same situation.
Yeah.
Was it different in the way that you approached the legislators?
I don't think so. I think, the historic nature of it can't be undervalued, and it shouldn't be. It is historic. From a policy standpoint, not only do I like the first female majority in history, but now I want everybody to be on the right side of history. And that means fully funding our education, doing the bold steps necessary. I don't think that's limited in male or female. We just want you to be on the right side of history with our issues and do good for the community, but also understand that it's going to take bold actions. And if you're only there for one session, you did good in that one session. And sometimes I think that was undershot a little bit this session, and I think that was one of the disappointments, regardless of the makeup of it. But we would just like you to be on the right side of history and take those bold actions we need.
And that's where we have to leave it. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your service at the legislature. It's a lot of effort on everybody's part to get through that 120 days.
Yes.
And we'll be right back.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Brian Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Brian's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Brian today. Brian Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Miner, and I'm sure you'd agree that Nevada's a very special place to live. I was born here, and my husband and I have raised our family here. I feel it's a privilege to live and work in the Truckee Meadows. I especially enjoy helping my clients reach their real estate goals. Sometimes the smallest details provide the greatest satisfaction. I'd be complimented to talk to you about your next move.
Call Marilyn Miner at Dixon Realty, 742-1280, or log on to marilynminer.com.
St. Ives Florist, for every holiday and every special occasion. For romance. Custom home design. We have the largest selection of fresh flowers in northern Nevada. And we also offer a large selection of unique gift items. Come see me, Lori Ann, at St. Ives Florist, 700 South Wells Avenue, or call me at 333-9190.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Our thanks to the Las Vegas Metro Chamber for hosting us, and always you can catch all of our shows at NevadaNewsmakers.com and on YouTube. We'll see you on the next broadcast.